There is a type of high achiever who serves as the structural support for everyone around them. They are the dependable friend and the reliable coworker who constantly absorbs the burdens of others, all while their own internal limits are silently fraying. Psychologists refer to this behavior as hyper-independence. While society often mislabels this extreme self-reliance as a healthy character trait, it is frequently a trauma response rooted in early emotional neglect. The result is a psychological state known as emotional exile. By dedicating all their energy to managing external demands and anticipating the emotions of others, the individual becomes entirely disconnected from their own internal needs. In daily practice, this manifests as a compulsion to take on unmanageable workloads. They exhibit a rigid refusal to delegate tasks, and they maintain a deep protective secretiveness about their own personal struggles. High-pressure work environments and collectivist cultures actively reinforce this toxic loop. They reward the behavior, praising the suppression of personal needs as a sign of moral strength. The psychological armor these individuals construct to protect themselves and maintain control ends up isolating them completely, ensuring their eventual collapse. This collapse reaches far deeper than the mind, embedding itself directly into human biology. The nervous system makes no distinction between a physical threat and the chronic emotional stress of monitoring the needs of others. Carrying that emotional weight locks your sympathetic nervous system, your body's fight or flight response, into a permanent state of hypervigilance. You are constantly, unconsciously braced for impact. This chart shows the measurable physiological toll of that vigilance. Populations with high levels of emotional suppression demonstrate sharply elevated risk rates for cardiovascular disease, autoimmune disorders, and gastrointestinal issues like irritable bowel syndrome. The persistent activation of stress pathways floods the bloodstream with cortisol. Over time, these spikes wear down the body's homeostatic mechanisms, its ability to self-regulate, leading directly to severe immune dysfunction. Emotional boundaries are a biological necessity, essential for maintaining the body's physical defenses against chronic disease. Despite this severe internal weathering, the high achiever projects a facade of competence. They continue to operate robotically, keeping up social attachments and fulfilling obligations, even as they become entirely depleted. They engage in a psychological state of profound self-deception, known as méconnaissance. Through this mechanism, they trick even themselves into believing they are stable and coping. Eventually, they reach a painful impasse. They become paralyzed, caught between the terrifying threat of their identity fragmenting and an absolute inability to relinquish their tight control over their environment. Then, the absolute limit of that rigid resistance is reached. The hidden emotional pressure becomes too great to bear, and the system shatters. This catastrophic break occurs precisely because rigidity is fragile. It lacks the capacity to adapt to sustained, shifting pressure over time. Surviving modern pressure requires redefining what strength actually means. We have to look away from hardness and toward yielding. The ancient philosopher Lao Tzu offered a truly radical alternative to this rigidity. His philosophy of yielding and non-action is documented in the Tao Te Ching, a foundational text compiled over 2 millennia ago. Within these passages is a central paradox. Water, the softest, most yielding element, inevitably wears away the hardest rock. This introduces the concept of wu wei, or effortless action. It means flowing around obstacles and adapting to their shape, rather than absorbing their full impact like a rigid wall. Durability comes from yielding. By adapting the mechanics of water, the self remains whole, while the rigid eventually shatter. The Tao Te Ching also points to the concept of the vessel. A clay pot, or a room with doors and windows, is only useful because of its empty, negative space. By constantly overcommitting and filling themselves with others' burdens, the hyper-independent high achiever eliminates their own internal space, effectively destroying their ability to function. This ancient philosophy maps directly onto modern clinical psychology, specifically acceptance and commitment therapy. This treatment trains patients in the psychological act of letting go, helping them detach from unhelpful emotional fixations. This graph tracks the physiological healing that follows. When an individual successfully disengages from rumination, we see a steep decline in cortisol levels and a measurable drop in painful somatic symptoms. Choosing to stop carrying the emotional weight of others lowers your allostatic load. It directly restores your immune system and extends your physical health span. Real wisdom lies in the courage to set the world down, recognizing that our utility and our health depends entirely on the space we allow ourselves to keep.